I was ready to crown Caleb Williams. And then the second half happened. The Bears lose, and J.J. McCarthy shut a lot of people up. We'll talk about it here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open, and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is, in fact, a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop, one of two shows here on Locked On NFL Daily. And what we do is we use the help of local experts on the Locked On Podcast Network to make sure that we have our pulse on each and every team and all of the happenings, and then we share that information here with you. Been credentialed in the media for 2 decades now, so I do a pretty good job, I think, of making sure the information gets out, but it would not be done properly if we did not have the help of the local experts. And it's Tuesday, so that means Kevin Ostreicher is here from Locked On Ravens, and he's going to help us navigate through a whole bunch of stuff, including some stuff that he probably doesn't want to talk about, but we're going to do it anyway. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Also, just a quick note, the Locked On Podcast newsletter is available on Locked On Podcast /newsletter. LockedOnPodcast.com/newsletter. Make sure you check that out. I'm going to give you a little bit of a roadmap. We're going to talk about how the Falcons blew a golden opportunity at the end of the show. In the middle, going green in the NFC North. I think people are buying green. They're buying the Green Bay Packers, but we're going to start talking about the Bears. Good start, bad finish. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, everyone wanted to see new offensive line, and I promise you early in that game, Kevin, it looked like the Bears were, here they come. And then it turns out to be, there they go, because they look just like the Bears have looked in the past in the second half.
It was definitely disappointing. I mean, look, all the hype around, and we've talked about it, Wig, the NFC North to me is going to be one of the best divisions in football this year. I just think it's super exciting. And, I think that all the hypes with Ben Johnson and, them getting off to a fast start, like, okay, this is finally Caleb Williams has his guy. But of course, this is the NFL, and we know things can go sideways pretty quickly. And I think that's what happened here. I mean, I don't know what it is with these teams in the fourth quarter, but these teams just can't hang on and finish the job. And look, I thought that this was going to be a blowout for the Bears. When that first score happened for Chicago, I'm like, all right, this is what I wanted to see. And everybody's talking about the Vikings and the Packers and the Lions. And I remember being on the show being like, well, hold on now. What about the Bears? What about the Bears? And now it's just kind of like, well, that is why people weren't talking as much about the Bears. And again, to me, I think this was a good learning experience. And you have to kind of remember, this was a lot of firsts for both teams here. Obviously, Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson's first game together, J.J. McCarthy's first game as well. There were going to be growing pains, but I mean, Minnesota's roster, in my opinion, is better. I think that the better team won in this game. And I think that, we saw a couple of blunders, particularly late, with the Bears not kicking the ball out of bounds and Kevin O'Connell making the shrewd decision and Ty Chandler bringing that ball out to trigger the 2-minute warning. Like, it's those little things that add up over the course of a game and ultimately led to the Bears' demise.
Did lead to their demise. It'll be your demise, too, if you don't listen to Locked On NFL on Amazon ad-free TV, man, because you need to go over there and check that out daily on Amazon Music. But we're going to hear from Locked On Bears and what their reaction was to that game last night, because Kevin is exactly right. A lot of little things that a head coach needs to be doing. And ironically, Ben Johnson said he let somebody else call the play so he could focus on those little things. Well, the little things weren't done. Here's Locked On Bears post-game reaction.
The start of the 2025 season starts off in a disappointing fashion for the Chicago Bears. They lose 27-24 to the Minnesota Vikings. Caleb Williams takes the Bears right down the field to score on the first drive of the game, something he never was able to do a single time last season. But as the game went on, he became less accurate. He missed big throws. He wasn't finding guys. and the pressure started to get to him as well. The Bears had 12 penalties in this game. They couldn't run the ball very well. And as the defense started off strong, a ton of 3-and-outs, really slowing down and making life difficult for J.J. McCarthy, he got more and more comfortable, the less comfortable that Caleb Williams looked in this game. It's a bummer. The Bears should have won this game. They were up 17-6 after the pick six. This is not what is supposed to happen with Ben Johnson. We were told it would be different. Instead, it feels like Groundhog's Day, and the problems of last year showed up in a big way again this year. It's week one. Things can change. There are positives, but overall, a very disappointing start for the Bears 2025 season.
Real quick, that's from the Bear Squad Show. That's our show too on the Locked On Podcast Network, but that is from the Bear Squad Show. He has a great point, man. I don't think we all need to quite overreact, but I do believe that this is sort of like muscle memory, right? So you do all of these things until somebody punches you in the mouth or they make adjustments, and we know Brian Flores knows adjustments. Now what do you do? And I think I saw Ben Johnson kind of mouth an expletive, because it's like, not that Caleb did it, but because I think Caleb started to revert back to some things that he thought and he hoped maybe he had coached out of.
Yeah, I'm not overreacting to anything in week one, and not anything, but I think at the end of the day, this to me is not a huge deal, because look, as good as I think the Bears can be if they reach their potential this season, I'm not expecting that from them. And I think this is a good learning experience. And I know that Bears fans don't want to hear that. This is a game they easily should have won. Like that they should have won this game. They blew it in the fourth quarter. There were those little mistakes, but sometimes you have to go back to move forward. Sometimes you have to learn from your mistakes. And I think that we saw the flashes. I think both teams showed the flashes, right? Obviously, Minnesota came out with the win. They had the huge comeback. But if I'm Chicago, it's a disappointing loss, no doubt. But I liked some of what I saw, and I think they can build on it. Speaking
of like what I saw and what you can build on, those dudes are ready to send JJ. What did Biggie say in one of those songs? Don't get mad. UPS is hiring. It seemed like everybody wanted J.J. McCarthy last night to just switch jobs and go get him a warehouse job somewhere in the first half. And they were about to kick him out, man. And then all of a sudden, you saw, this is what I love about professional sports. You literally saw a kid grow up. Doesn't mean that he's going to not make mistakes. It doesn't mean that he's finally figured it out. But at least last night in the vacuum, he went from looking like a dude is like, why did they pick him, to, oh my God, I see why they picked him.
Yeah. Look, I will be honest. I was already trading Justin Jefferson to the Ravens in that first quarter. I said, Lamar will save you, Justin Jefferson. And then, look, I love when people either shut me up or prove me wrong, or, say, hey, by the way, I'm actually, this is who I am. And that's what we saw. I mean, you put it really well. He grew up over the course of 4 quarters. And we've talked about Minnesota. You liked them. I like them. I think they're a team that made a lot of good moves in the offseason to build around J.J. McCarthy. They have the weapons around him. And I think that last night showed you a lot of good opportunities for him to continue to grow, because he has the weaponry around him. It's just a matter of the ceiling and the floor of Minnesota revolves around their quarterback position. If JJ can have a great second year, rookie year, whatever you want to call it, like that, to me, they could be a sneaky team in that NFC North that I think they're kind of being put third right now behind the Packers and the Lions. They could sneak up in a second or be a sneaky team to win.
They can. And I'm going to tell you what, one thing that I take from last night, he endeared himself to his teammates, because you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to have some gamemanship. You have to be a gamer. You have to be a dude that when things get tough, the tougher they get, now you got to step up. You remember last year at the end of the year, Sam Darnold, he kind of folded. This kid stepped up under a lot of immense pressure. And we got to remember, it's his first game ever. We love to give up on people. I don't give up on anybody. And I almost can be guilty of giving up on Jordan Love. Well, that's about to change based on what I saw the other day. We'll talk about that more here in a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and the dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your order. That's supplyhouse.com. Promo code SHNFL5 for $5 off your first order. Real people and real service. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to us fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. And I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, here with my man Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens, and we saw a lot of good around the National Football League. One of the most dominant performances I saw this weekend was by the Green Bay Packers, with all the talk about Michael Parsons, and rightfully so, because you saw what he did. He's a monster, okay, playing against one of the 2 or 3 best offensive linemen in football that he was matched up against all day. It was more than that. It was Jordan Love. It was the way that they went about their business against a very, very good team. Here's my man, Peter Bukowski. Buckle your seatbelt because he's about to let loose here from Locked On Packers.
The Green Bay Packers beat the Detroit Lions the same way the Detroit Lions beat everybody else. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and here are 3 quick takeaways from a 27-13 beatdown at Lambeau Field in the Packers season opener. It starts in the trenches, where the Lions have been the big bad boys of the NFC, along with the Philadelphia Eagles for a few years now with Dan Campbell. And it was the Packers who absolutely dominated this game in the trenches. They harassed Jared Goff all game. They won at the point of attack. They held Jahmyr Gibbs. They rallied and tackled. And offensively, they protected Jordan Love the entire game. This was a game the Packers won at the line of scrimmage. And that helped them start fast. 17-3 was the score. It felt over after 7-zip. They go down and they walk right down the field, converting 3 third downs, including 1 for a touchdown to Tucker Kraft. They get a 3 and out on defense. And that felt like the game right there. And finally, Jeff Hafley. This was a masterful performance. It has been a brief history in Green Bay, but this was, for my money, the best schemed, the best called game of Jeff Hafley's defensive coordinator career with the Green Bay Packers. This was his masterpiece, and if it is a sign of things to come, then the Green Bay Packers are truly a bona fide Super Bowl contender.
I watch with intent the way they coach up there, because Anthony Campanile, their former linebackers coach, is now the defensive coordinator with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he was with Hafley when they were at Boston College. So I think there's a lot of parallels, but he's absolutely right. They got the bodies. They were very, very active the other day. And Green Bay, along with a lot of, let's just say, Jordan Love having the luck that 2 of those bad passes that he threw were absolutely not turnovers. I think they can go a long way, man, as long as they stay healthy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think obviously adding Michael Parsons is the cherry on top for this team. I think that Jordan Love's progression has been really cool to watch. And, like Peter talked about there, the Lions, they just don't have that same spunk, it feels like. Not that they're not a good team, not that, and again, like week one overreactions, it's like it's everywhere across the NFL, right? I'm not saying Detroit, oh, they're not going to win the North. There's no shot. Of course they have a chance. They have talent up and down that roster. But I think this division, and it's so weird to say it's going to be a lot closer than last year, and week 18 literally came down to the final game of the season. But I think that it's going to be more bunched up in terms of all four teams, where the Packers last year were kind of lagging behind a little bit. The Bears weren't really relevant. I think all four teams have a chance to win 10 plus games this season and be in that category. But now you're essentially, I believe, talking about the Packers in that like Rams territory, where like Super Bowl contender, can they get over the hump against Philadelphia? They're certainly in that conversation alongside Detroit. And, Philly's the team that everybody's pegging as the next NFC champ again, because they did it last year and they have the most talented roster, but it's not how the NFL works. You got to line up, play the games. And I think the Packers, especially with the coaching, you mentioned that, I think they have a real shot to make some noise.
They do. And I like what you said about the division, because with 7 teams now going into the playoffs, we know at least 2 of them are going to come out of the NFC East. But if you're going to get more out of the NFC North, that means you can only get 1 out of the NFC West and the AFC and the NFC South. We'll talk about both of those. So listen, the Rams are the obvious darling of the NFC West. The 49ers have been for a minute, but they got a bunch of injury woes. And now, to go along with those injuries, they've even got kicking problems. Check out the guys from Locked On 49ers talking about that.
When I watch Brandon Aubrey line up for a kick, I assume it's going in. When I watch Jake Moody line up for a kick, I legitimately do not know what to think about what's going to happen when the ball hits the ground. Like, did it go through the uprights? Is it wide left? Is it wide right? And that gives me a very uneasy feeling. And I think it gives the rest of the fan base a very uneasy feeling as well. Not being able to trust your kicker in any scenario.
Yeah, man. The little things like that don't seem to matter until your team isn't as good and you need to win close games. Trust me, you know how important a kicker is. You really do today, right? And I do also, because the Jaguars have a kicker that literally, as soon as you cross midfield, he's already in range. 49ers got a lot of issues, bro.
Yeah, it's we talked about them all off season.
We did.
Can they stay healthy? Can they finally reach that point and get back to where we saw them a couple of years ago? And it is moments like that where you lose a game from your kicker and then you cut him. It's too late. Like you lost the game. Like it's again week one, everything, but this goes beyond week one for the 49ers, where this has been a trend with a guy like Jake Moody. And feels like, look, I'm totally fine with backing your guys and sticking up for them and making sure that they feel because the second you start questioning a guy, their confidence gets shot. It's done. But as a team, you have to do what's best for the team. And I think when you continue to kind of like latch on, because look, a lot of other players get cut for a lot less, right? And so I think you have to keep that energy. I get that bringing in new kickers, and it's like, oh, what if this guy's worse than the last guy? Like, what if it's even worse? I mean, well, at least try. Like, at least try. So I understand the 49ers fan base frustrations with this. For me and covering the team I cover, I've been lucky in terms of having kickers that have been consistent for the majority of the franchise's history. But, it's not like that across the entire league. And for San Francisco, they're a team that needs every single advantage they can get. And this seems to be one that they're just choosing not to try to fix.
Yep, they are. And now it may not have seemed important before because they were just blowing people out. George Kittle has a hamstring issue. CMC is likely on a pitch count. Now they're talking about Jawan Jennings is banged up. Those close games are going to matter even more. Speaking of close games, nobody is more hurt right now than Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons, because they had a chance to do something that could have gotten their season off to a good start, and that is probably push Tampa into overtime or even win the game. They didn't do it. They missed. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, y'all, it's all about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for football and ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'm telling you, man, I love FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, one of the games that I was very, very interested in to watch was Tampa at Atlanta, because I remember the game last year. It was wild, man. Kirk Cousins, maybe it was 2 years ago, putting on the gold chain, and after, on Monday night or Sunday night or whatever it was. And these games are always really, really fun, and it was absolutely entertaining. I actually had it on my little phone while I was at the stadium with the Jacksonville Jaguars beating Carolina, and I couldn't take my eyes off of them because I actually thought they were going to get it done. All right, as a gesture to Michael Penix, my man Aaron Freeman is going to make an appearance with his do-rag on. Now, I'm going to mind you, Penix does it because he has waves. Aaron Freeman is bald-headed, so he ain't doing it to get waves on his scalp. He's doing it just as an ode to Michael Penix, who actually did play well the other day. Check out Aaron Freeman with what he's going to say about that game.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. The Falcons drop a heartbreaker in week 1, 23-20 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had a chance for some late game heroics. They got some from Michael Penix Jr., who was able to use his legs rather than his arm to give the Falcons the go-ahead score with 2 minutes left to go, 20-17. But unfortunately, the Falcons defense, which had been solid for most of the day, struggled in the final 2 minutes, giving up a 25-yard touchdown to Emeka Egbuka to give the Bucs a 23-20 lead. Falcons were able to drive down the field, get into field goal range, and had a chance to hit a 44-yard field goal to send the game in overtime. And Younghoe Koo, who's coming off his worst season in 2024, missed it wide right. And so you're back to kind of square one with the Falcons, where you're wondering, okay, how much improvement has this defense made? Is the special teams going to continue to be an issue given Koo's struggles? So those are all questions that the Falcons will have to answer moving forward. But they'll regroup, drop a heartbreaker. Should have won the game. Unfortunately, didn't. But, the Bucs, at least for now, still seem to be the top team in the NFC South. And we'll see if the Falcons can recover next week on Sunday night against the Minnesota Vikings.
I think they've taken a step forward. I think they're going to be a dangerous out for everybody because of what they can do offensively, and defensively they look improved. But I'll tell you what, Emeka Egbuka he sure looks like a really, really good player, man. I don't know if Baltimore was close when he got picked, but when you look at him and you go, man, that's somebody maybe the Ravens could have used.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team could have used a guy like that with how good he looked on Sunday. And I agree with you. I think the Falcons will be okay this year, but obviously these games are huge when it comes to division. And my saying, Wig, is that September losses don't matter in September, but they matter in December and January. When you're fighting for seeding, when a playoff game happens, you don't have home field advantages. You lost a game you should have won, or you missed an opportunity. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see here. Where we're probably going to be talking in December about the Bucs and the Falcons fighting it out for the NFC South crown, and they're going to be every team from the NFC North is going to make the playoffs, and NFC East, there are going to be 3 teams, and there's going to be no spot for a second NFC South team. And we're going to look back at week 1 and say, man, that game had so many big implications. We just didn't know it then. And of course, I know the Falcons, they brought in a kicker to compete with Younghoe Koo. We will see. It's a kicker problem across the league, man. I guess, is what's going on. It's huge. I mean, you got Cam Little in Jacksonville. You're feeling good about that. Tyler Loop, hopefully in Baltimore for the team I cover, is going to step up and be good as a rookie. So, we're not feeling the pressure that some other teams are. But Atlanta, their offense is one of the most. They have the most potential. At least they have some of the most potential throughout the entire league. If they can get the full version of Michael Penix and a guy like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, like they have so many talented weapons on that offense. You just got to put it all together. I know Caleb McGarry was a tough loss for them. You got to kind of regroup from that. But to me, it will come down to the defense and allowing your offense to go out there and score points without needing to be in a shootout every single game.
No doubt about it. Now, you just said we're not under the pressure that everyone else is, and you're the Ravens. I would say you're right. You're under more pressure, and here's why I tell you that. Because Aaron Freeman, at the beginning of his soliloquy there on that clip, said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Kevin Ostreicher, I don't want to do this to you. You're one of my closest friends. I even gave you a nickname. I gave you a nickname because I love you, right? I call you KO. Yes. Sometimes I call you filibuster because I say you look like a politician. But listen, I'm going to give you the next 3 minutes if you need them to just, what does it feel like to be a Ravens fan when the mistakes that you can point out to where they lost these close games with Lamar, Zay Flowers, the tight end, Andrews, and now Derrick Henry. Those are some of the best players on the team, man. They put 40 up on the road against the Bills, have a 15-point lead with 7 and change left. And it's like, here we go again. You got your finger on the pulse of the team. Explain to us how these people are feeling and what else can anybody do or say to get this team over the hump.
Yeah, so now you want to talk about the Ravens. After all the times I wanted to come on this show and talk about the Ravens, now I have to talk about the Ravens. Man, look, I'll tell you what, Wig. This is kind of the saying everybody's floating around right now, and it's true. You know, the Baltimore Ravens are the best in the league at beating the Ravens. They're the team that you have to look out for. They're the biggest threat to the Ravens. It's themselves. And look, I give a ton of credit to the Bills. They hung in there. They did their thing. Josh Allen was magnificent in that fourth quarter, second most passing yards by a quarterback in the fourth quarter. But when you look at it from a Ravens perspective, this is just, it's the same script with these plays, with these moments. And it's certainly frustrating when you can talk about how good this roster is up and down. You can go position by position and just say, look at the star power, look at the depth, look at this, look at that. And of course, you can't just judge a team based off of a roster. You go out there, you play the games, you line up, and that's ultimately what dictates if you want to lose.
Correct.
But we've seen the Ravens, first of all, the offense was incredible for the majority of this game. You know, Lamar was great. Derrick Henry, outside of his fumble, was great. Zay Flowers, you mentioned, he was great, career high in receiving yards. But you get to the fourth quarter, you're up 40-25, and it just feels like, again, the Ravens took their foot up off the gas and became a team they weren't. That was the Baltimore Bavens, not the Baltimore Ravens, with what we saw. They became a different team, and that's what we see from them. And Lamar Jackson has begged and he's pleaded for this Ravens team. He's done it publicly. He said, hey, we need to keep our foot on the gas. He did that last year, and we saw at times they did that, but they kind of just reverted back. And the narrative that they have built for themselves, and this obviously is more postseason than regular season, is, you know, the fact that they can't win in the big moments. They always find a way. You know, we're one game into the season and we're already talking about it again. We picked up right where we left off here in Baltimore. And I think that the most frustrating thing is that how all offseason they were just kind of like, it's going to be different. We understand. We're motivated. We're ready. And it happens like this. I mean, John Harbaugh has the most, second half double-digit blown leads in the NFL, 17. And his answers during his Monday availability, during his press conference, where it's kind of like, well, we've been up a lot. So, you know, you're going to, and I just, you know, he said it's unacceptable in the whole 9 yards. And I think he eventually like zigzagged his way to get to where the accountability was taken. But, you know, saying that in an answer makes it not feel like there's urgency. Like, oh, well, you have more opportunities to blow leads, blow more leads. No, the fact is you're blowing a lot of leads, and that's not okay. So, you know, the coaching got way too soft towards the end of the game in terms of just trying to get out of there, prevent defense, you know, a lot of trying to run the clock down. It just feels like the Ravens now, and they can't start 0-2 again, right? Well, they did last year against the team in Las Vegas who they should have beaten. Well, they played Cleveland this time around, and hopefully they're able to get that job done. But the Bills now have the head-to-head tiebreaker. And what I said, you can't look at this loss as like the season is over because it's only week 1. You got a long season ahead of you, but September losses don't matter in September. They certainly matter in December and January. And last year, the Ravens lost games that they should have won. And if they win just one of those games, they host a divisional round in Baltimore instead of going to Buffalo. And maybe that's the difference.
I think Baltimore, the way they're constructed, is a team. I call them face breakers. They just know how to punch people. They know how to fight. They're the best in the league when they're breaking faces. But when you tell them to go into a shell, they're awful. And I think they got to, but see, to win games, to close out games, teams usually go into that shell. And you say the only chance a team has is if you keep swinging haymakers and they catch you with a lucky punch. You just got to let Baltimore keep swinging. Offensively and defensively, you cannot get comfortable. They ain't built with uncomfortable people, with comfortable people. They're built with uncomfortable people. So you got to keep playing uncomfortable football, even if the sheep tells you that you should be doing something else. What you should be doing is paying attention to Locked On NFL because it's twice a day. This is the barbershop. Tyler Rowland hits you early in the morning with a double shot of espresso. The madman will wake you right up checking out Locked On NFL today. Twice a day, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap in. All right, Ostreicher, go get him, man, and tackle the world and try to figure out what Baltimore's got to do to make sure that they don't keep losing like that. And I'll do the same thing here. Jaguars got a win streak going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, check me out over on Locked On Jaguars. We appreciate you spending 31 and a half minutes here today with us. Your time is extremely valuable. We do not take it for granted. And hopefully we gave you a reason to come back. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.